The rain fell like whispers from the heavens, quiet, relentless, cold. A lonely figure trudged down the narrow alleyway that snaked behind a line of old brick apartment buildings in the forgotten part of Brookridge. This was a place most avoided after dark. Crumbling walls, flickering street lamps, and graffiti screamed of neglect, but for 23-year-old Ethan Rowe, it was just another shortcut home from his third failed job interview this week. Ethan's life was a string of disappointments, raised in foster homes, shuffled from one low-paying job to another, and always feeling like the world had dealt him a hand he never asked for. He wasn't a bad guy. He didn't steal, didn't cheat, didn't lie. But no matter how hard he tried, trust, especially in people, was a luxury he couldn't afford. Too many had broken it. That night, drenched and defeated, Ethan stumbled into something that would change his life forever. He spotted a man standing beneath a broken canopy, tall, with an oddly pristine coat despite the weather. His face was obscured by the brim of a fedora, but something about him felt off. He wasn't sheltering. He was waiting. "Evening," the man said, voice smooth like polished marble. "Rough day?" Ethan hesitated. "You could say that." The man offered a small, knowing smile. "Sometimes life tests you in ways you don't expect. Would you believe me if I said I have something that could help you, right here, right now?" Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Help me? Why?" "Call it a trust test," the man replied, reaching into his coat and pulling out a small, dark box. It was no bigger than a jewelry case, wrapped in crimson ribbon. "Take it," he said. "No charge. Just open it when you're alone." Ethan didn't move. He wasn't a fool. "What's the catch?" The man tilted his head. "Ah, there's always a catch. But not the one you think. This gift only works for those who still have a sliver of trust left in them. That's all I'll say." Ethan looked at the box, then back at the stranger's face, still shadowed, yet oddly calm. Against every instinct screaming in his chest, he took the box. "Good," the man whispered. "We'll see what you're made of." And just like that, he turned and walked into the darkness, vanishing between two buildings. Ethan stared at the box in his hand, water dripping off his sleeves. The ribbon looked freshly tied, not a drop of rain on it. Back at his tiny studio apartment, Ethan sat on the floor, the box resting on his coffee table. He studied it for a long time, heart pounding. Who in their right mind accepted gifts from strangers? And yet, he had. Because deep down, despite all the betrayals and scars, part of him still wanted to believe someone, somewhere, meant well. With trembling fingers, he pulled the ribbon and opened the box. Inside was a single silver coin, old, weathered, and engraved with a symbol he didn't recognize. Underneath it was a folded note. "Flip the coin at sunrise. Make a choice. One path grants fortune. The other, regret." There was no signature, no clue as to who wrote it. Ethan laughed dryly. Fortune or regret, huh? Isn't that life already? Still, something in him felt different. For the first time in weeks, he had something unexpected. A choice. A mystery. A test. He kept the coin under his pillow that night, unable to shake the man's cryptic smile from his memory. The next morning, Ethan woke just before dawn. The city was quiet, bathed in pale orange light. He walked to the rooftop of his building, coin in hand. The skyline looked endless from up there. He felt like he was standing between two lives. He held the coin in his palm. It felt heavier than it looked. Something pulsed in it, like a heartbeat. "Okay," he whispered. "Let's see where this goes." He flipped it. It spun in the air, catching the sunlight, then landed in his hand. Heads. He waited. Nothing happened. No thunder, no magical glow. Just the wind whistling between the buildings. Disappointed, he slid the coin into his pocket and climbed back down. But things began to change, subtly, at first. Later that day, Ethan passed a community center he'd never noticed before. A flyer on the door read, "Youth mentor position available, no experience needed." Trust is everything. The word trust jolted him. He almost walked away, he always did. But something pushed him to step inside. He met Janet, the center director, a kind woman in her 50s with a warm smile and serious eyes. "We need someone young the kids can relate to. Someone who's seen hardship." "You don't want me," Ethan had said. "I'm not good with people. I don't even trust myself most days." She smiled gently. "Then you're exactly who they need." Against all odds, he was hired on the spot. Days passed. Then weeks. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of purpose. He worked with kids like Leo, a fiery 13-year-old with anger issues, and Kayla, a quiet girl who drew monsters to express her fears. Ethan saw bits of himself in them. He began to heal. The coin stayed with him, always in his pocket. He called it his lucky charm, though he still wasn't sure what it actually did. But everything comes at a cost. One evening, as he was locking up the center, he saw the man in the fedora again, leaning against the lamppost across the street. Still dry. Still smiling. "You chose heads," the man said. "And it brought you fortune. But remember the second part?" Ethan's stomach dropped. "Regret?" The man nodded slowly. "All gifts are tests. You trusted. That was good. But the test isn't over." He turned and walked away. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he woke to sirens outside his building. He rushed to the window and saw paramedics loading someone onto a stretcher. His heart sank as he recognized Kayla's mother, barely conscious. Ethan ran to the hospital, where Kayla sat alone in the waiting room, eyes wide with fear. "They said she overdosed," Kayla whispered. "She's all I have." Ethan's chest tightened. He sat beside her, unsure of what to say. Over the next few days, he visited her daily. He bought her meals, helped with schoolwork, even stayed late at the center so she wouldn't feel alone. But he could feel something pulling at him. Darkness, maybe. Regret. One evening, Janet called him into her office. "There's been a complaint," she said carefully. "Someone claimed you've been too close to Kayla. They said it looks inappropriate." Ethan froze. "That's insane. I'm helping her." "I believe you," Janet said, "but the board doesn't take chances. We have to suspend you until it's cleared." Everything crumbled in seconds. He walked home in silence, the coin burning in his pocket like fire. What had he done wrong? He had trusted. He had helped. He had opened his heart. And now, everything was falling apart again. In his apartment, Ethan stared at the coin. "What are you?" he whispered. "Why me?" That night, he dreamt of the man again. They stood in the alley, rain pouring down. "You passed the first part," the man said. "But there's more. The deeper the trust, the greater the risk." Ethan looked up. "Why are you doing this?" "To see who you become when everything you've built is threatened." He woke with a start, drenched in sweat. And beneath his pillow, where the coin once rested, now lay a second note. "The next choice comes at dusk. Be ready."